I was a child who was the middle child of my father's two children. My half-brother Lynn and my half-sister Shirley were not living with us as the entire part of my childhood, and so I was my mother's oldest child. So in some respects, I was in the middle of five children. I always felt I was adopted, like many children do, for a while, because when Agnes was born, 2 years after I was, a lot of attention was paid to her, and my dad always called me Blondie and my sister Agnes Darky, because she had darker hair and eyebrows. He called her Blackie. So we were Blondie and Blackie, and but I had a good time. I lived in the neighborhood on Texas Street, an old Texas Street, and I liked to roller skate. When my brother Lynn was with us, he couldn't roller skate, so I was the winner. But he stayed away from me during playtime for about a year, or I felt it was a year, and he came back and he said, "You want to skate?" And I said, "Sure," knowing I would beat him. But I never did, because he had been practicing, and he he whooped me. He was the star skater. We had a little dog. It wasn't my dog, but I've never had a animal as a pet since. We had this little dog, Popeye. He was a little fox terrier, and one day he was missing. I don't know whether he ran away, whether he was run over. I've always thought about him, but I've never had a pet because I didn't want to go through that again. And I loved, at the age of 10, to have my first Swin bicycle. I loved that. My mother, I didn't know my mother that well as a young girl. Not until I was in my late teens did I understand her, both because of her accent and I just wasn't aware. I don't remember a lot of those things. But my dad, he was my hero. He would come home and let me jump on his stomach. I always thought I was really outsmarting him. And he'd let me untie his boots and take his boots off. And he would take us for Sunday rides, and we'd get ice cream. And I got my share of ice cream on our trips. He would take us to the back country because he thought it was much like Utah. And my mother would attempt to teach me about Iceland, but I didn't know any better. And one of my regrets is not learning part of the language or learning about the sagas of Iceland, some of the oldest stories in the world history. But she was a wonderful mother, and she took beautiful care of us. I was an average student in school. I didn't take my schoolwork as seriously as Agnes did. She was the scholar. She made really good grades, and I had a concept of school as something that I had to do, but I didn't know enough about studying. Because my mother didn't speak English that well, neither my mother or dad ever helped us with schoolwork. I just did enough of what I could get by with. I didn't know how to write real well. My handwriting is really bad, and so I had to rewrite everything that I turned in, which was a pain in the butt for me. And so I was an average student. I didn't really get my education until after I was out of high school and went back to school and got my education in many different ways. But as a kid in school, I was a clown. I was the one that at lunchtime would imitate some of the teachers that I thought were funny. I was in high school. I would do, what was her name? Betty Hutton. I would imitate her, and in one of the dances that we had, I imitated her to her music. So I was always the one that was laughing. I realized later in my life that a lot of my laughing, which is also the blessing that I was born with, was the ability to laugh. It was also a big mask in order to hide any pain that I had. In high school, I was boy crazy and stupid, and I also didn't understand enough about myself to be cautious. I believed people. I was really naive. My mother and dad never, and during those years in the 50s, 40s and 50s, parents didn't really tell their children about how life was, any of the dark spots, death, and many of the things that we had to learn as we became older. But I had a good, stable home, good food. My mother was a wonderful cook, and she came to the United States with many skills that were not appreciated by my dad, and I didn't realize that she was a pretty smart cookie until later in life. As a young girl, my main theme in my life was having a family. I wanted to get married and have a family. I was raised to do like Scandinavian people are, especially girls, knowing all the skills of keeping a home. I had my little brother David, who was 9 years younger. I thought he was my baby, so I took care of him a lot. I had all of the skills of cooking and cleaning house and doing that type of work were just part of the way we lived. I didn't realize that. I mean, I thought that everyone else lived the same way. I didn't think in terms of a career. I didn't think in terms of what kind of job I wanted. It was always getting married and having a family. My mother tried to talk to me a couple of times and saying, well, what are you going to do before you have a family? I said, I don't know. I don't know. So I had my family young. I'm not disturbed by that at all. I am so thrilled at this point in 2010 that I was able to stay home with my children and raise them. I loved taking care of my home, doing all the things that I did to keep my home in order. I was a good manager as an adult, and I always had a sense of ethics that I learned from my dad. I felt he was an ethical man in business, and my mother was an ethical person. I was raised not with my family going to church, but we went to church as young children, and I have been involved in a religious manner where at my point in life I think I'm more spiritual than I am religious. As I looked back as an adult and saw what was happening in my life, a lot of the major things that I've done in my life are because of, in spite of being a woman, in spite of being a girl, I was able to accomplish many different things. As a young girl, when I had my Swin bicycle, I stripped it down. For some reason, I thought that was the better way to go, and the boys would look at me and say, "You can't do that." And I said, "Well, I just did." And my dad had to wonder why I did it. Many of the things that I have done in my life are, "You can't do it, you're a girl." And I did it in spite of that. I painted my house in spite of the fact that a lot of times men did that work. I made my own clothes. I made all the curtains in my house. Like many of the people that in the 50s, the women, we didn't have a lot of money, and many of the women did things on their own. When I started to work after I was divorced, I worked as a telephone operator, and it was in spite of my being a little bit older than a lot of the young women in there. In spite of being told I couldn't do anything, I took a class in drafting. And in spite of wanting to do that work because I thought I would be good at it, I went to class and the teacher said, "Why don't you sit up in front with around all the boys?" As though the only reason I was there is to be around young men. In spite of that, I did a good grade, and I finally got into the telephone company in spite of my having a bad surgery, in spite of my being scared to death to go to work, and I survived that. When I went into the engineering department, I was thrilled to death, both to have a job, but in spite of my age, being considered an older person, I excelled in doing that kind of work. Then I became an aide for a engineer, and I was thrilled. And I developed a program in color coding a lot of the cabling, which the engineers loved to have. And my boss took credit for it, said it was his. So in spite of it, I still did the work. Then I was promoted to engineer, and in spite of the men hating me for it and quite a few years of being harassed by them and not being, had no respect from them, I finally had their respect because they knew I was working with them, not against them or for them. And I am very proud of myself in having the job that I did, having the recognition from the customers, and the people that worked with me kind of gave me a bad time because I was older than they, and they didn't want to give me as a woman credit. But I did, and my bosses gave me credit. So I'm very proud of myself for the accomplishment that I've made. And I've been, as I look back, along with working full-time, I've been a volunteer since I was in my 20s, and I have been a volunteer all of my life in various different avenues, and I'm proud of the work that I did there also. I'm pretty proud of myself. I've done good. My artistic life started when I was a child, without my knowing it. I felt artists were born. They knew they were artists the minute they came out of the womb. I didn't know it was something that was a creative part that I think most people have and don't know how to recognize. I remember back in the 50s, I worked very diligently with PTA for many years. I was in charge of homemade clothes. The mothers would make homemade clothes, and I would be the speaker for the show that we put on. I was very active in PTA, making a lot of the things that were project where you'd make something. I was in charge of a lot of those things. Never considered it as artwork, just that I was going to be productive for my children's sake and for the community. I've always been community-minded, and when I retired, in my 20s, someone gave me a book about watercolor, and I loved it, and I wanted to do it, but I had no money. All this stuff was expensive. But when I retired, I was directed to what I have now known to be my master watercolor teacher, who was a master at what she did. She was not somebody that told you what to do. She would give you an assignment and let you work it out so that you would create your own style. My first year, if it hadn't been for her, I would have quit trying to paint. I wanted to paint, but I was horrible at it. It was like kindergarten for me. But I spent $100 on materials and decided I had to finish that year. I have been thrilled to do the work that I've done. A lot of it has been spotty, but originally when I first started painting, a lot of the inner things that were happening internally were coming out in paintings, spontaneous things. I have one painting in front of me right now that I will never sell, never give away. It was done with sticks with random colors and just swirling around a stick. And I look at it, and it's a mother and child. I'll never get rid of it. It confirmed my inner thoughts when I was a young girl and as an older person. The awards that I've won, I've been thrilled to death by them. I've had anywhere from Best of Show to down to honorable mention. I've had newspaper articles, and I've had money for the prizes that I've won. I have enjoyed painting, and I've actually come to a point where I don't feel embarrassed because of what I do. I'm in reality a storyteller. Many of my paintings are stories, and some of them I don't know until the story is told in the painting, and then I can look at them and see what it was I was doing. My best show was one of healing, where I have a whole show of showing paintings that I started out when my brother was killed. He killed himself, and I didn't know what to do. Everything was scattered, so I took the elements of the service, took the flowers, the people, the church, the different things, and made symbols out of them, and made a painting of that so that I could pull it all together, so I could see the whole thing in front of me. So I took it out of myself and put it on the paper so I could see my brother in one piece, if you can understand what I'm saying. The rest of the paintings were things that were happening to me through tragedy and severe surgeries, where I almost died from having my back surgery. I took the inside pain and took it out and made symbolically a painting of what that was. I had a horrible accident where I took the car that hit me, I took the pieces of my body that were injured, and I painted them in one painting to take a look, make it prettier on the outside than what it had been on the inside. All of those paintings were done in that respect, in taking pain from the inside, taking it out into a better, clearer, colorful picture that was softer and easier to live with. I've lived alone more years than I have been married or living with family. I'm very used to it. It took me quite a long time. My first divorce was very, very painful and took me many years to come to terms with. But during that time, I moved forward. I got a job. I was working. I was volunteering. I was busy all the time. At this point in my life, I'm very happy, and I love being alone. The thing that is coming into my mind, however, is that I'm older and I'm vulnerable. I live in a time era right now where people are not that safe, that there's things happening around the world or within community that are chaotic. I am living now with neighbors that I don't know very well. I was in a store recently, went out into the parking lot, and 3 young men approached me and wanted money, and I was very calm with them, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't get money on the street. Other people have been harassed. They've been having their purse stolen. That woke me up to something new, that I have never been afraid of being alone, never. But now I'm realizing that I'm in a vulnerable age, and so I've got to be more protective of myself. And I always make it a point to be around people. Those things that I'm involved with, I think it's very important to be with other people. But I'm hoping that I can stay in my home, and I will roll with the punches as they come. My name is Hilda Ann Golden Erreca, and I'm going to go through some photographs of my family and I hope you enjoy it, because this has been a very good exercise for me. I have a photo of my mother when she was 16, and I'm not sure whether she had that taken in Iceland, or I think it's a passport photo, because she left Iceland when she was 16 and went to Denmark. She spent 2 or 3 years in Denmark and learned both cooking and to be a tailor. So when she came to the United States in 1924, she came not knowing the language, but she took her tailoring tools and went to the stores in downtown San Diego and got herself a job at one of the biggest department stores in San Diego. This photograph is of my mother and either a friend or a cousin, and I'm not sure whether it was taken in Denmark or in the United States, but it looks like it was taken in about the 20s. My mother, when she came to San Diego, California, always loved to have her picture taken with other people that she met here, and she had some family here. My mother's dress is very beautiful, looks lacy, but she was very happy to be here and be surrounded by friends and family. This picture of my mother is, to me, very beautiful. It's hard to say what age she is, although I'm sure it was in the 20s because of her hairstyle. She was very beautifully dressed in San Diego when she came here, because she made a lot of her own clothes. And as a tailor, she loved her job. She learned how to speak English and went to school for 2 years learning English and becoming a citizen. And I was very proud of her when I understood that. This is one of my favorite photographs of my mother. I'm sure it was taken, I'm almost certain it was taken in San Diego, California, and it's a beautiful dress. I don't know whether she made this or not, but she has a watch on and her red beads. My mother was known, she said, as the woman in red. She loved to wear red as much as she could, and she does have the red beads. But this is a very beautiful setting for her photograph. This photograph is of my mother, and I knew her well here. I probably was a teenager or close to a teenager, and I am laughing because my mother loved her jewelry. And here she has a pin on and a necklace and earrings. And I'd say, Mother, take one of those off. And she said, oh no, I love them all. I love them all. I think she was probably in her late 40s or early 50s in this photograph. But I get tickled when I see her with all this jewelry, because I'm a little plainer than that. So this is a lovely picture of her. This picture of my mother, I feel, was taken in Iceland, and I'm not sure of her age at that point, but the background indicates a farming area. She did have a brother who was a farmer, and everything in the background looks like probably a shed and a rock bed. It's very strange. Iceland didn't have a lot of outdoor flowers. You usually were in greenhouses. So this one is very interesting to me. And but she was always happy to go back to Iceland and visit her family, her sisters and her brother. This picture of my mother's father is in dispute, because she was told her father was one person, and it turned out it probably was another one, someone that she had come to San Diego, California, actually National City, to see, and was told that it was her uncle and her cousins, his children. So this may or may not be her literal father, but it is taken in Iceland. And I can't think of his name at this point. I may have it written somewhere, so it may be in some of my belongings. But looks like he was ready to harvest. Calafina, that was my mother's grandmother. Calafina lived in Iceland, and this photograph shows her in a Icelandic, not a costume so much as an everyday dress, and she looks like she's sitting on a high stool. Calafina is a common name there because in Iceland you take your father's name, first name, and my mother's name in Iceland was Helga's daughter. If she had been a boy, her name would have been Helga's son. So Calafina had another name other than that name. But she's sitting there, and she looks like a very old woman. My grandmother, her child, was named Hilgadottir, and that's what I would have been called had my mother been able to call me that. Luckily, my aunts decided that I should be Hilda, not Hilgadottir. The following 4 sheets of photographs are my mother and her brothers and sisters in Iceland in 1950. She went to Iceland and spent about a month there and had a wonderful time. And I went with her to Iceland in 1973, and I had a wonderful time. I have a favorite brother, and he's on the top photograph with dark glasses on. He was such a good-humored man, invited me to his home, and I had dinner in his home with his family, and the little devil was trying to make me eat mountain oysters, and I fooled him. I knew what they were. But he had a sense of humor, and we didn't know how to speak each other's language, but we had such a good time together. He was my favorite brother, and my mother just loved her family. This one I love, and I wish I knew more of the story of this. My dad came to San Diego, I think in about, I'm not really sure, maybe 22. His brother was already here, Morley Golden, starting a construction company, and my dad came from Utah, Nephi, Utah, to join him and work with him. My dad did a lot of underwater work, both here in San Diego and in Northern California and Long Beach. But this looked like he was coming here, and I don't know what kind of work he was doing, but I like this photograph of the wages of gin is breath. He was good at memorizing. He memorized the whole poem of Gunga Din, and if he had a few drinks, he might offer it, and I have a recording of that. This picture of my dad is like he was as a young man, and I'm not sure whether this was taken in San Diego. It could have been anywhere in the work that he did in California. I wish this had been in color because my father had very light and bright blue eyes. They turned darker as an older man, but he had beautiful, beautiful eyes. And here at this point, you can see that he had already become a supervisor of some sort, and 2 men that worked with him and for him. And I like this picture very much. Here's one of my favorite stories. I think I must have been 13 or 14 years old, and I walked in my house, my parents' house, and the kitchen door was closed, and I thought, what's that? And I heard my dad say, "That damn Hilda!" And I went, whoa, what happened? And I opened the door and came in there, and he said, "I'm not talking about you. I have named the crane in San Diego, which was the tallest crane at that time in the bay, or in the water, San Diego, and he had named it Hilda. My brother Len worked on that crane while it was here, but I felt very honored in having largest crane named after myself, Hilda. So I love this picture for that reason. This is a wonderful picture. I don't have that many with my dad, with my sister and myself. My sister Agnes, 2 years younger than I. My mother made the coats. I wasn't too thrilled in being dressed alike as a young girl, but my mother's clothes were always beautiful. I don't think she made the hats. I wasn't too happy about the hat either, but it was so nice to be with my dad. This was, I think, one of the big fairs that we had in San Diego, and this was one of the real high points in San Diego's history. So again, I'm very happy about having this photograph. This is a glad and a sad photograph of my father and his brother, Morley Golden. This was retirement for my dad from M.H. Golden Construction Company, and he retired with about 7 other men who had worked for many years for my uncle Morley, and we as a family were very proud of my dad, and my dad was both sad and happy to have this day and be honored at a dinner along with all of us. This is a wonderful photograph, and it was in a setting, a professional photograph, and it looks like it had been colored. I don't think they put any makeup on us, but it looks like it's been tinted. And Mother probably made our dresses, and Shirley had come to visit. This is a time that Shirley was... Lynn lived with us for a while, and we always were so happy to see both of them when they came to visit or stay with us. This is one of my photographs that had a bigger story than I remember totally. I made my dress, and I felt like I wasn't formal enough when I went to sit down with that, but I was happy with the dress. It's little David. He was my precious little boy. I always thought he was my child. And both Lynn lived in the San Diego area, and Agnes, and Shirley lived out of town, either in Utah or in Northern California. And so when she would come down, we'd all have our picture taken together. This is Hilda, and I'm not sure at what age. It could be 1.5 or 2, I think. And I'm excited to see the little bracelet on her arm. I don't know where that came from. Of course, I don't remember myself at that age at all. But what is interesting to me is that she's got a book, and that's been one of my all-lifetime passions, is reading. So I love this picture of her and of me. This is a fun picture for me, and I don't know what age I am there, maybe 4 years old, but it's the little one that's inside that, the one that has the funny face smiling. This one is exciting to me because every time I thought I was having my picture taken, I'd make a funny face. I was not someone that played with dolls, so they must have given me the doll to play with when they were taking the photograph. But the one with the bangs, I didn't like that haircut, but it looks cute on her now. It's the pin on her blouse that I remember. My Aunt Agnes gave that to me, and I loved it, mainly because she gave it to me. This is Hilda. I can remember this photograph. I don't remember the dress. I don't know whether my mother made that dress for me. And the hat, I didn't like wearing hats, but it's the birds that I like. If you turn the photograph upside down, you're seeing Hilda very hesitant because the bird either bit my finger or she was afraid that the bird would bite her finger. But I'm starting to remember some of these things in having my picture taken. Well, here I am with my straight hair. This was probably junior high school, and I don't know who gave me the locket. It may have been my aunt again. She always knew what I liked. and I started wearing sweaters. These are the things that I wore in junior high and high school, was sweaters and skirts. But I always tried to put up my hair in pin curls, and I'd always get one side that would be halfway curly, and the other side I didn't know how to do very well. But this is a sweet picture of me. This is me, I think, at 18 or 19. This may be a photograph I had taken while I was engaged to Lou. I feel like I did my own hair here because it's shorter than I normally would have worn it at that time, and I probably made the jumper that I'm wearing, but I am starting to be more of an adult in my appearance. Well, this is one of my favorite photographs. I must have been in my 50s, maybe a little bit older, and I was at my friend's house, and I was just leaving. This is a very spontaneous picture. She said, "Look up!" She lives in a mobile home, and she was such a good friend. And so I was very happy with this photograph because it was so spontaneous. But I was getting older. This is my last formal photograph that I had taken in with a good photographer. And I was unhappy with all of the shots that he took. This one I felt was pretty good, and I may have been in my late 50s or early 60s during this time. There's Teresa. I don't know how old she is, maybe 3, going on 4. Every birthday for 2 or 3 years when she was little, she'd fall down and scratch herself. I think this may be a legitimate tooth falling out, but her hair is nice and almost curly. This is my favorite picture of Teresa. This is, I'm really not sure, it's her graduation picture, except she looks so young here, and I had her hairstyle. She wasn't too happy about that. And I don't know where she had her necklace, but this is a wonderful picture. Teresa was valedictorian of her high school, and she looks beautiful. There's little Renee. She's probably about 3 or 4 months old, and this is a studio photograph. She was just a little booger and didn't start talking until she was about 2 years old. All she'd say is, "No, no," but smarter than a whippet. There's Renee. She was a big worker in high school, always at the top of her class, skipped a grade when she was in the 3rd grade, and kept up with her studies, was involved in all the things at school, ran for offices, and and that's a beautiful picture, one of my favorites. She was a star. Here's my Wayne. This is my little boy. I always wanted 6 kids until I had Wayne. There I was with 3 children, and I couldn't keep track of Wayne. He was always running somewhere. And I wish I'd kept all his hats. He loved to wear his hats and his uniforms. He loved to have his cowboy outfit, and he'd strut around in his outfit with his boots. So I wish I'd kept all of his hats. My little boy. Here's my babies. And I'm not sure about the ages there. Maybe Wayne was 3 years old, and he's got his dress uniform on with his bow tie. And the girls, I made the girls' dresses. They were not too happy when I made dress-up clothes for them. And, of course, I did the hair. You can tell why it's not really done professionally. Here's one of my favorite pictures of Renee and Wayne, and this was a series of photographs that were taken by our neighbor, Dorella Melton, and she had them be very spontaneous. This is one of my favorite pictures of my children.
You want to follow me around the house?
Oh, yeah.
This shrub was so impacted over the years of looking in here. All you had was stuff like, I mean, glumps of all this old stuff. But I took out half of it, about killed me, and then my yard man came and cut it like this. I'm going to get a birdhouse just for ornamental for Caden. I'll have him pick it out, and then it'll hang down here. Then this is all my trash can. He's going to have to patch over all of these. My main concern is I wasn't going to ever paint it again, but about 2 and 3 feet up is water damage, you know, from rain and from water. So I've got to take care of that. And this is my deck. Remember when you helped me take down the big deck?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you ever saw this, but the paint on this was supposed to last for 5 years, and it may have done that, but it really needs it badly now, so he's going to paint that over again. And this is my garden, and I love my yard the way it is. I used to have a vegetable garden, but I don't have that any longer. And this is Caden's garden. These flowers, I've got to come and take off all the dead pieces, and he picked out this bird, but this vine is growing around the bird with these beautiful flowers, and he's got his little birdhouse. He's got his little birdhouse. And then my tree, which started growing, it's so tall now, and I don't know how tall it's going to get, but that's one of my centerpieces of the yard. And then I've taken a lot of the plants out and moved into succulents and trying to get a variety of color. And this area here I've cut back for Brandon to do the painting. I love that plant. My bougainvillea this year was absolutely gorgeous. Gorgeous. And then this is Caitlin's garden, and these are starting to die out. The heat's really getting to all of this now, but I've got 2, I don't know whether they're going to survive, sunflowers back there, but they're not doing very well, so I don't know whether they're going to grow or not. But I've got it now so that when the yard people come in, I let my lawn die in the front and back in the summer. We're so pressured about water, and water is so expensive now, so I don't water the lawns in the front or the back during the summer. I just water my plants. But I love the various shapes in my yard. And this is a lemon tree over there, right by Caden's garden, with lemons that have never had juice. They get big, they get distorted, so I'm cutting the tree back just to serve as a ornamental situation. But anyway, I like my yard, and I can't do the heavy work anymore, but I can come out and trim some of the things and take care of Caden's garden and Caitlin's garden. And I've had better roses this year than I've ever had, and I don't know why. And now I've got some, I don't know whether it's a disease. I've never had it this bad, but I'm going to have to address this kind of thing. But I've had absolutely masses of roses. It's weird. And Mark Golden did this in here and this, and he suggested this. I love this. Mark did not do a good job with the total job, but I love that sidewalk there. And I love this sidewalk, although he didn't raise it so that when the rains come, this gets completely flooded, absolutely flooded deep. So I had there's 3 feet of rock here to kind of absorb some of the rainwater and let it go hopefully under the house, not into the wood structure. And so, and my trash can doesn't have enough to hold that stuff. But things are looking up. And that tree there is so beautiful, and it was twice that size. When a huge branch fell down on their cars, you couldn't move it. The city came out for her. This is Melton's house, and they have new people there. And they came out and delicately cut back all of the tree limb and all the leaves, and then they trimmed the tree. And I went over to thank 3 Mexican men that were sitting there having lunch, and I said, that tree is so beautiful still, the way you've cut it. And so 2 of them pointed at the 3rd one and said, he's the artist. And I said, are you the artist? Yes. So anyway, I'm so glad they didn't take that tree down. It's my favorite. My favorite. Oh, that's my yard. My yard. And my door. So I thought I'd take you a tour of my paintings, because you haven't seen any of this, I don't think. This is Caden when he was born. I painted this, and this was his hero. The elephant is his savior. And so I painted this. I didn't do a good job of this baby, but that's Caden. And because he was being fed by a tube in his stomach, I selected animals at the San Diego Zoo that had long necks or long arms, and they're his protectors. And so he's here, and I have all of these elephants that I bought or were given, and they are surrounding him to protect him with his health. And this is one of my fantasy cats, and I love that one. This one, I got a huge recommendation by my teacher, who was a genius teacher. Her husband now comes to our critique classes, and he's a real well-known San Diego artist, Ed Wardell. And he told me when I was showing this at the critique session, he said, don't touch it, sign it, and it's perfect. So I bet, God, thank you, thank you. This is rice paper. One of our artists died of cancer, and so a lot of us were able to have her papers, and this is rice paper. And so I took the rice paper in honor of her and incorporated it within my painting. But I love this. This was a lot of work, but I loved it. And then I had this one from an old time. When I was in Michigan, when I went to see you in Michigan years ago, I bought this in Michigan and sent it home. And the artist, this is leather. This is all leather. The color has kept beautifully. The texture has lasted beautifully. And she, the artist came from Laguna Beach. So this artist took her things to other places in the country, but I absolutely love this. And these are my new paintings. At my age now, I'm only painting 1 painting a month. I'm experimenting with more things that I wouldn't have done in the past, and I'm having a lot of fun with what I do, whether it's good or bad. That's a painting that I did years ago that I felt matched my the pillows on my couch there. And I consider things for stories. I'm going to make Caden a book, make a big picture of the painting, and then write a story or a poem around the painting that hopefully he will enjoy. So this is my hallway. I changed these paintings. These are my paintings that I did quite a few years ago. And the majority of my paintings have been storytelling. And this one is about apricots and where apricots came from in Japan. And this one is the bottom of shoes, the sole designs shoes that I've decided are part of the house wear. And here's a street that has soles on them. And so this one is one that I really enjoy painting. And this one you enjoy because this is my father's family. I did this from a picture that they had. And this first woman by the window is my Aunt Hazel. This is really Frant. This is Iris, who I didn't know very well. She lived in Arizona, and she was one that I didn't understand very well because her and her husband always looked at their children last because they gave to the church before they fed their children or had good beds for them and all that. And then this is my Aunt Deora, which was one of my favorite, and my Aunt Dean, who I felt I looked more like because of size and features. And during that time frame, this is probably back in the 40s, she always blued her hair, had bluing in her hair, which many women did at that time. This is this is Aunt Irma. She was a very bright, brilliant woman, never had any children. And this is Alzada, who was the black sheep of the family. She wasn't taking care of her children well. Agnes said she had 11 children. I remember a few of them, but not all of them. This is my Uncle Ott, who was really the tallest of the group, and he stayed in Utah. He was a farmer, and he'd come to California periodically on vacation. The prominent person here is my Uncle Morley, and I did him both in size and color of his jacket. And then as the as the black sheep of the Mormon group, they were all Mormons, here's my dad. I put him with the mustache that he had at one point in time. I put him in this type of outfit because he didn't follow the rules of the Mormon church. When the church would come on Sundays to see my dad, and what they did was want to come and visit and then get money. My dad would go back in the bedroom and hide, and my mother would give them a cup of coffee and give them some money. So that's what I did there with him. And then all the stuff in the farming area I have filled with corn because this is a corny picture. I would never have done that had any of them been living, but I was having a lot of fun. I also put in the outhouse because as children, all of them had the privilege of at least having an outhouse. And the flowers are prominent both in color and size because their spirit lives on. They're still a growing spirit within the world. So that's my family portrait, which I'm going to frame and hang in my bedroom shortly. And then these are my paintings over the years. This one is a few models, and it has a French name that I can't remember what I named it, but I love what I did with this one. And then this one over here is kind of I can't remember which artist I was kind of motivated by, but I like this one. I don't do well with faces or anything and bodies, but I've always wanted to be a portrait painter, but I like what I did with her face. and it fit into the style that I was painting. This one I had wonderful time with because this was kind of a life type of thing of Aborigines in Australia, which I have pointed out, but it's also biblical in the sense of the sign. There's always a sign with whatever's happening in the world. And so I've made both the objects and the words that I've used to designate what I mean by signs. This is a water mass, and this is a handmade bag of the art that they do wonderful art over Aborigines. But that one is wonderful, and then this one is another one that's kind of after some artist that would paint in a similar fashion. Nondescript. I mean, whether they tie together or not as objects, they do in this form of painting. And she's holding his head. And I've had a lot of these in. Oh, the light won't go on because I've got the fan on. And then this is my storage room where I keep a lot of frames. I don't do a lot of framing anymore because everything is so heavy. And then this is my workshop. I've created this room, made it into my workshop for many different projects that I do. And I've taken out the closet doors for storage. And I'd like to call your attention to this painting. I've got two of those. I was luckily chosen as one of my teacher's pets, so to speak. And so she took pictures of everybody through the years at school or when we would go out. And so these are the pictures that she took of me. And this is the second painting of hers that she's done for me. And done for me in the sense that I paid for it also. But she had my Icelandic thing here and my Icelandic costume and different places where I've been and paintings that I've done. This one here was a painting that I did concerning her husband when somebody came and was stealing the flowers out of his yard. But I'm very proud to have been one of the objects of her like, and she always told me, she said, you need to be a storyteller and you need to continue that type of work. And then I've got my billboard over here of things that are meaningful. I've got your drawing that you did of me many years ago. I love that. Some people came in the house about a month ago and I said, what is that Hilda? And that was a calendar picture from years ago after World War II or during World War II of women that the artist decided he liked those piece parts of women. So he had a series of calendars over I think a 3 or 4 year period where he painted Hilda in all different types of places. And that's my teacher and her husband there in the photographs. She was brilliant and enabling people through her teaching methods, which were some people couldn't handle or they wanted her to sit down and tell them exactly what to do. But she was brilliant in making obscure lessons so that everybody would see it in a different way, and train themselves to paint within their own style, whatever style that they decided worked for them. And we still have these critique sessions all these years after she died. And as she was dying, she was still teaching. I've taken a lot of classes of various things. This is all clay. And I've done a lot of mandalas. I taught a class about mandalas. They're a healing tool, a meditation tool, working with color, and The other one is just a simple floral, but I have had a lot of comments on it. And then this one I did for my neighbor, Mrs. Melton, when she died. I did part of, I took part of her, a quilt that she had, this hat she wore quite a bit before she died. She was always telephoning people to tell them happy birthday. There's another phone through the years. She was always mailing things to people and having flowers in her yard. And so I gave that to her family. And and then this is Melton's, who were my neighbors that I loved, and they made me part of their family. So I always had them as my guardian angels, which they still are. Wonderful people. And this is not my painting. This is not my painting. These are my teacher's things, small, that she gave little paintings like that to some of her class students before she died. And then this is my family room, where I spend a lot of my time. And this painting here was when I first started painting, and some people can see it and some people can't. But that was done with outside in a park, and the thing was to take a stick with black paint and just make swirls all over. So I did that, and then I came back and put some paint in there. But what I saw in there that just blew my mind is mother and child. I did add the scarf effect around her head, and put a little bit more for the baby's eyes. And I will never get rid of this. This was done from within. And this is what part of this teacher would want us to do, is to not paint what other people think we should paint or anything else, but the spontaneous eruption that would come out in a painting when you're not even looking for it. This is a good example of that type of thing. These two paintings I love. I've painted that one years ago, and I don't know that I've ever shown it. But that is a, and I never remember. That's an eagle. That's a rare eagle, and I can't remember its name right now. But I love that painting. And then this one I love, and I'm calling this the Avatar of the Sea. It has Celtic design in the head. A lot of people don't like it. It's scary to them. And the exterior looks like it's leather, according to some people. And I love the design of it, and I love the fish wrapping around. But some people think it's ugly, but I don't. I love it. And this is Caden's drawings. Caden was drawn, then Renee would help him with all the words and different things that he did. And then this reflects Caitlin, the new little girl that's now going to be 2 years old in November. And all my books. I love books. I've loved books since I was 10 years old is when I started just devouring books. I also have a deep faith in the sense of almost dying in 1965, and coming out of that, I don't know that anyone can come out of that kind of situation without having their sense of God more as a spiritual thing than a religious thing. So especially at my age, I'm more of a spiritual person in what I sense, what I believe, and I've got over 7 Bibles, and I enjoy reading through with the different translations. A lot of people feel that the only translation that's even worthwhile is King James. I was given this Bible when I was 10 years old, when we lived in Alameda, and the girl that was helping my mother, this is so old, but the print is too small for me to read, and I haven't read the King James for many, many years. I've kept this Bible because it was given to me, and this girl was so good, and she wrote verses or underlined things for me, and so I value this Bible. And at this point in time, I belong to a group that is happening. I don't know whether it's over the whole United States or just in California. Many different churches, Protestant and Catholic, are reading not necessarily this book. This is the Bible, and it's called The Message. It's a current one that's written. Mine is large print. And this is a series that people are reading this entire Bible in 90 days. And I'm almost down. I'm back at Revelations now. So within one day, maybe two, I will have finished the Bible. And at the end of the month, all of us that are in this, within the church I attend, will get together and celebrate completing this. And many people are given another form of Bible, which to me I had to give away because it was like reading a poorly written newspaper article. So I decided I'm not going to do that. This one is longer. It's more extensive in words than the Bible that was selected. But this Bible I'm going to give away because I like my old Bibles better. I like the rhythm and the poetry and the writing much better than I do with the current vernacular. And this is my office. I use my computer mainly for reports, letters, various things. I don't do any big other projects. And that painting is one that I did years ago with partly paint and like this would be taken out of a newspaper collage on these apples. And I was doing it while I was watching a video of an artist, and much of the colors that I was using, and without realizing it, my teacher said that part of what I was doing was not copying so much what he was doing, but had the sense of what he was doing. So I enjoyed that. And then I've got my backyard and Caden, he does this every time he comes. He finds this thing and puts it on the window, and it might last there for 2 or 3 days or pop off. And then this is my table of my grandchildren. And my children, I don't know my original grandchildren anymore. They're in Michigan. And I don't see Megan very often. She's up in Escondido. But this is when I knew them. This is when I would see them. And so they are my blessing that I look at every day. And so happy. One picture that I don't have is Madison, who's and I want to have a picture of Bronte that I can put up. And so things are, and that little picture by my mother and I, and that little tiny thing is my mother's Icelandic mother, and I blew that picture up, and then I could see my mother in my grandmother. But I am happy that I have that. And this is my working picture. I'm doing a new thing here. I'm doing the design. The lesson is more like a cubic. Cubist, can't say it right, And so I'm doing this, and I'm starting out with an experiment. It may not work because I have a lot of work yet to do on it. But I'm creating a picture of, I'm trying to create a picture with a story hidden within this painting. And the hidden part, and somehow humor always has to come into what I'm doing. But I'm doing Jesus' story. I'm doing the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. There's the Holy Ghost. And this is going to be, I've got, fix it there. This will all come up, so it'll be holy. These three things are candles. These little black specks that are like spears are the nails that were used to hang him on the cross. And down here are the robes of the fallen Mother Mary mourning for her son, and Magdalene Mary. This is the rock that has been displaced from the tomb, and somehow I'm going to create something in here that is not tomb-like, but that's what I'm going to call it anyway, of the tomb being opened. And I'm hoping that with getting this all filled in, somehow they'll understand that this is a cross, this piece here, and then down here. Somehow I'm going to follow the original lines with the end color that will distort the whole thing. But I'm hoping my experiment will work, at least for me. Hello? Yes. Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not there yet. I'll decide that. She wants to talk to you.
Hello? What's up? A-okay. Thanks, man.
I thought we were going to breakfast. Are we going for lunch?
Well, we can go for whatever.
Well, that's up to you. I mean, I am just trying to do something that you would enjoy and go to a place you enjoy. But I don't know. I thought we were going for breakfast, but now what do you think?
You know, a brunch would be really, really nice.
Brunch, yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on your timing, we can go to the best Coco's because they have very nice breakfasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the one on 2nd Street.
Okay.
Or we could go to the one I don't like that's here closer to me.
Let's go to Coco's.
That's right. That's right. Boogie.